Bonjour les amis, bonjour from La Belle France, bonjour from Southern France, bonjour from Provence. Today I am taking a field trip, a road trip to a popular small town here known as Saint-Rémy de Provence. You are looking at the local church, La Collégiale Saint-Martin, named after Saint Martin. The facade is pretty recent, 19th century, but the clock tower in the back, you can see it peeking above that tree, is actually much older. So quite interesting for someone from Tours in the Loire Valley, i.e. myself, to be here sitting outside or standing outside a church named after Saint Martin. As you probably know if you've taken my other virtual tours, the legend of Saint Martin started in the city where I live now, in the Loire Valley. I hope you're doing well. I know a lot of you are still sleeping and will catch the replay. It's about 11:20, not quite noon here. So hopefully some of my European viewers as well as my Australian and Kiwi viewers are around. I wanted to do this a little early in the day so I can do another live stream later, and also because we have a little market going here, not a big one. And I thought I'd take a short stroll with you if you'd like to tag along in the town, the lovely town of Saint-Rémy. Now the big crowds are gone, the summer crowds are gone, but when I arrived here this morning around 9:30, it was quite very empty. In fact, it was lovely. I walked around the streets and took lots of photos, but now it's filled in a little. You can see there are people coming here for this market and to check out the beautiful town of Saint-Rémy. We have some local products, of course. We have some salt from the Camargue. We have some Herbe de Provence, lavender sachets and soaps, flavored or scented, I should say, with flowers and all sorts of things. Olives are big around here. So why don't we take a little stroll in the streets of Saint-Rémy de Provence? I think it's nice to step away from what's familiar once in a while. It's nice to step away from the big city, from the capital city, from Paris, and to see what France is like outside Paris. It's also fun for me to step away from my new home, the Loire Valley, and to come back to an area where part of my family is from. And I'll be touring in Provence for the next 8-9 days or so, and using two great cities as home bases. The first one is Avignon, where I arrived yesterday. And already I'm back out on the road, taking a little road trip. Look at the beautiful tomatoes here, heirloom tomatoes. And on this side, we have some interesting baskets. And look at all the signs you can have outside your house. Most of them mention l'apéro, l'apéritif. Hard to stay in France without... Bonjour. Hard to stay in France without mentioning l'apéro, l'apéritif, this ritual, this drink, this beloved ritual, I should say. So Saint-Rémy is a beautiful town in Provence. It's immaculately maintained. It's a bit of a postcard perfect view of Provence. We have some very old buildings. The city was around during Greek and Roman times. So we have architecture. We have actually an archaeological site right outside the city. We also have some beautiful facades dating back to the 17th, 18th centuries, some former hôtels particuliers, private mansions, and everywhere else, those facades that are so typical of smaller towns and villages in all over France, but here especially colorful at times. Bonjour friends, I see your names pop up, I see your messages. So I think we'll stroll. We'll basically do what we did in Paris just a few days ago. We'll walk around, take a look at some of the shop windows, do some lèche vitrine window shopping. And I'm just going to walk in a little bit of a loop. And if I get lost, I get lost. Lots of small streets, lots of small squares with beautiful fountains. In fact, we are coming now, we're arriving here at one of these beautiful squares, or place in French. Look at those beautiful platanes, plane trees. This to me says southern France. I grew up in southern France, and whenever you drive along side roads outside big cities, we see, they're of course here for shade. It gets really, really hot here in the summer. This is the Hôtel de Ville, so the local city hall, if you will. It has a small belfry. And like in many places in southern France, there's a fountain. Water was life for a lot of these villages and towns. Look at that. La douceur de vivre, how sweet life is here. So it's pretty quiet. Like I said, the big tourist crowds from the summer are gone now, but I'm sure it's gonna fill in at lunchtime. I've looked at license plates on cars, and that tells me that we still have tourists in town, including yours truly. Some people looking down at the scene. Great view from up there, I'm sure. Very elegant city. Hey Roz, welcome. Very elegant city, lots of art galleries. I think the city is proud of saying they have the largest concentration of art galleries and artist workshops in all of southern France. So that says a lot also about the demographics here. You have a lot of concept stores, a lot of clothing stores, a bit of a high-end place, if you will. In fact, I read in a guidebook before I came here that this was like the Saint-Germain-des-Prés of Provence. That says a lot if you know a few things about that neighborhood in Paris. So lots of streets like these with shops on both sides, quite lovely. So I'm going to take my time, just do a small loop. After that, I want to go visit one of the museums in town, so I'll leave you outside that museum. Look at this house over there. Do you see it? The blue shutters. And look at the color of the sky, the Provence skies. Now, one of the reasons the skies are so blue very often is because we have a powerful wind blowing through the region on and off. A wind that's strong enough and cold enough to drive you crazy, to make you mad, they say. It's called the Mistral. And in fact, it's scheduled to blow on Sunday. So I wouldn't be surprised if it got really chilly on Sunday. How about I go this way? I've only been in town for less than 2 hours, so we're going on a bit of an adventure here. The downtown area is very compact. Hey, if Oliver G, the Eiffel Tower, my friend Oliver G is watching, I think I found Kylie the crocodile, in Saint-Rémy de Provence. Everywhere you look, you have those beautiful shutters. Not shutters for decorative purposes, actual shutters that you can use. That you need at night, but also to bring some shade during the day when it gets really hot in the summer. Let's hope those old stones don't impact my cell signal too much. I think I will go left. You knew Kylie was Italian, huh? Maybe she is. Look at this. Even now, when it's really busy, the streets are super quiet. I'm sure it's very different if you come here in July or August, even at the beginning of September. For a town that size, it's actually, they have quite a few museums here and a few interesting things to do as well. The archaeological site I mentioned, and something else outside the town that I might try and take you to later today. For those of you who will be awake then. Another square. La Place Philippe Latourelle, where we have another fountain. And we are standing right outside le Musée Estrine. It sits in an old hôtel particulier, private mansion dating back to the 18th century. You can see how magnificent this is. And inside, it's more contemporary art, contemporary paintings. I haven't been inside yet. But like I said, there are several museums. And the one I'll see is a little farther up. I apologize. There's a frog in my throat. I am not in Avignon. I am based in Avignon for the first few days of this trip, but today we are taking a field trip to a small town. I rode a bus to come here, about 45 minutes away from Avignon. We are in beautiful Saint-Rémy de Provence, one of the better known or best known towns in this area. Perfect. Look at that. The sky. You see this in the middle of the street? This is what used to be there, of course, in the Middle Ages, back at a time when people would just empty everything, and I won't go into details here, from their windows all the way to the middle of the street. So today, of course, they're not used quite for the same thing, but this morning, it was very early, I followed a gentleman here who was cleaning the streets. And he was working, using this part of the street to clean everything. Look at that. What to do with old mailboxes, or old cake molds. Something interesting to notice, you have the street name in blue there, Rue Lucien Estrine, but you also have a street name in yellow. Do you see it? Carriero di Blancard. That's Occitan, that's the Occitan language. It's not French. And that, of course, takes us back to the... I know the connection with the old stones might be a little tricky. I want to show you a fountain here before I go back to the other side. Now, the town is famous because a gentleman was born here and lived here, studied in this region. His name was Nostradamus. And this fountain is dedicated to him, as is the street. He lived in the 16th century during the Renaissance. He was a doctor, he was a man of the arts, he was extremely educated, attended universities in Avignon, Montpellier, and eventually became, you remember his prophecies maybe, and he eventually became one of the main advisors of a very famous queen named Catherine de Medici. This is the street named after him as well. So his home is in the area. I saw it earlier, I took a picture of it, but this fountain here and this street are dedicated to him. Let's see, let's go back up this way. I hope the cell signal will hold. Or hold up. Ah, the joys of live streaming. We have some really elegant boutiques here. And some crying children. Maybe they should take those children to the boulangerie and they would feel better. We have some specialties you find in southern France, les oreillettes. My mom used to make les oreillettes. In other regions, they're called des bugnes, in Lyon, for example. And here you have a sacristain, which is a puff pastry rolled with almonds and sugar. Le sacristain. You don't see these in Paris typically. More nice boutiques. Fall is here, as you can tell. Another pretty square. Lots and lots of art galleries. Let's see. Take me to the boulangerie. It's almost lunchtime, you know. At least here. Isn't this a lovely square? More art galleries. Something I've noticed is the trees have these little sweater-like contraptions on them, and sometimes there's a message on them. I've noticed that this morning on several squares, so I think we'll see more a little later. Another atelier or workshop. Here we have an exhibit. So as you can see, definitely a city targeting artists or people who love art. Very elegant city. I'm sure it gets super busy in the summer because the streets are not that big. And like I said, downtown is pretty compact. Ah, le spécialiste de la truffe. So if you like that very dark mushroom, la truffe. There she has samples. Bonjour. Bonjour mademoiselle, merci beaucoup. I'm going to... Qu'est-ce que c'est ça?
Du pesto à la truffe blanche.
Du pesto à la truffe blanche. Merci beaucoup. Pesto with white truffle, friends. I'm sampling that for you all. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. Oh boy, it's delicious. You can definitely taste the truffle, la truffe. It's very good, but it's not overpowering. That pesto is very good. Another art gallery. And look how immaculate everything is. I'm not kidding. And like I said, I saw the young man who was cleaning the streets this morning very seriously by running water in the center here. And he was using a big broom and picking up everything. Ah! Anyone for champagne or wine, vin champagne. And they have a lot of bio, organic, you see? And a lot of wines from the area. Les Beaux de Provence, this beautiful perched village that's nearby, very close to here, to Saint-Rémy. All the Côte du Rhône, the Châteauneuf du Pape, that's set right across from Avignon. So if I kept going in this direction, I would reach the street and the church where we started. We basically walked in a loop. And I'm reaching here La Place Favier, F-A-V-I-E-R, which is another beautiful square. But this time, instead of platane, plain trees, we have some marronnier, chestnut trees with their big leaves. And, you guessed it, another fountain. So I'll wrap up in a few minutes, because I want to visit a museum that's right here. Oh, here are those, I call them socks for the trees. We'll take a look. Here's a little fountain. If you've ever, you know, Marcel Pagnol, who was an author and a movie maker, wrote those beautiful stories about Provence. His family, he grew up in close to Marseille. And he wrote those stories like Jean de Florette and Manon des Sources, Manon of the Springs. And in those stories, he does explore the importance of water and fountains in all the villages in Provence and what happens when the water runs out. So it's kind of nice to know those stories, to put that in perspective. All right, so here are our socks again on the trees. This one says liberté, égalité, fraternité. Liberty, equality, fraternity, the motto of the French Republic. Look at this peaceful square. This is a little dog they're calling. Where is he? There he is. He's not listening. And les marronniers, the chestnut trees, see how they provide shade, even if it's not a hot day. It's about 20 Celsius, or it will be later today. It's not super warm. So we are standing right outside a beautiful building, which happens to be one of the town's museums, le Musée des Alpilles. Alpilles, you see that name written up there on the red sign. Alpilles means the small Alps. It is a regional park that stands nearby and very popular for hiking, among other things. And this museum, I understand, is dedicated to the park itself, but also to the men who live in this area. There are traditional costumes to see a bit of the folklore of this area. So I'm going to visit this museum in a few minutes and wrap up this stroll. But for now, I want you to enjoy the outside, the exterior of this beautiful building. That was another of those hôtels particuliers, private residences I was talking about. I will take you to it's pretty massive. It sits on the corner. It was founded, this sign here tells us it was founded, the museum, in 1919. You see those beautiful windows? So this museum actually sits in a building dating back to the 16th century, and the plaque is here. It says the Hôtel de Mistral de Mondragon. Now that's a name for you. Hôtel de Mistral de Mondragon, 16th century, which is, and you can see that. You can see the windows, the way the windows are made. And today, of course, a museum. See that little character up there looking down at us? I will take you through this gate here because it's fun, and then I'll wrap up so I can see the museum and then maybe catch up with you later today from a different spot in Saint-Rémy. And again, we have this caniveau, we would call it, in the middle of the street. These are probably the prettiest pavers I've seen in a long time. They're very different from Parisian pavers or pavés. Look how pretty and shiny they are. Hopefully the cell signal will stay with me right in this courtyard where I'll wrap up. We are standing here outside another hôtel particulier. Look how high this is. So we're clearly in an elegant part of town, used to be an elegant part of town. This is the Hôtel de Méran de Lagois, ancien hôtel de Bénaud de Lubière. That's good for your French pronunciation if you want to practice later. So it's now called the Hôtel de Méran de Lagois, but it used to be the Hôtel de Bénaud de Lubière. Notice how many letters are not pronounced, which is really interesting. Hey, I'm a French teacher after all, eh? You're welcome. Musée des Alpilles, this is the back of the museum I'm going to visit now. So we're standing at the back of the museum here. And here we have another hôtel particulier, l'Hôtel de Sade. You know this name, Sade, S-A-D-E. Well, this gentleman happened to be one of the ancestors of the famous Marquis de Sade, who was kept in jail for a while at the Château de Vincennes, in Vincennes, around outside Paris, where I used to live. So this building is used to keep some of the Greek and Roman artifacts that come from this archaeological site that sits right on the outskirts of the town, of the city. And I would love to go inside, but I'm not sure I'll be able to today, so I'll see. But anyway, so I hope you've enjoyed this stroll in Saint-Rémy de Provence, our first side trip or road trip or field trip outside Avignon. I'll be back in Avignon at the end of the day to meet with my friend, who's also a Rick Steves tour guide, and I'll introduce her to you formally before I leave town next week. I'll say a quick hello as I always do. Voilà. Bonjour les amis from Saint-Rémy de Provence, one of the beautiful towns in this lovely, lovely and so popular part of France. You can see why, even off season, even if it's not super warm, it's just such a lovely place. So I hope you can join me again later today. I'll try and pop by again from another site in town. But for now, the museum is waiting for me right behind me. So I'm going to say goodbye. Let's flip it around to give you one last peek at this beautiful square and the fountain in the center. And this, my friends, is Provence, or southern France as well. Tall trees, peaceful squares, and fountains. See you later. À bientôt.